Welcome back to Super Rock Boy Videocast. I'm Elroy with my favorite friend here, Corey, Superhuman 581, and we're about to talk about our top five worst live action movies based on a video game. How are you doing, Corey?
I'm doing great. I'm already smiling because I can't wait to talk about this, given the fact that A, it's going to be controversial. B, these movies are absolutely terrible. And C, I can't wait to hear your opinion and have some reactions to that. I also can't wait to hear what people are going to say in the comments, man, because
Mm-hmm.
there going to be some controversial picks here. And some people are going to definitely come at us sideways about, you ain't seen this? You ain't seen that? How you going to put this above that? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm ready, man.
Okay, so start us off. What's your number five?
Hey folks, how's it going? Superhuman 581 here. Just wanted to give you a very quick, brief reminder, friendly reminder to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Most of you are subscribed, but about a third of you aren't. But you're watching the content, right? So you might as well go ahead and join up. Oh, my number five. Okay. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let me go ahead and get adjusted here. Ugh. So number five, let me go and preface this by saying I didn't go and to all you people out there in YouTube land, I didn't go and research all the Metacritic, Rotten Tomato ones with the worst scores. I'm going by what Corey has seen,
Mm-hmm.
in his somewhat young life up to this point. Um, and so number five is Street Fighter.
What? With
Yes,
John Claude
exactly.
Van Damme as Guile?
With Jean Claude Van Damme's guy. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. Street Fighter,
Okay.
actually, not an absolutely terrible movie, but it's actually a bad movie. It's not a good movie. It's so bad it's good, right? Kind of thing. But here's the thing about Street
Okay.
Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to tell you right this. Tell you honestly right now. This was a sneaky way for me to bring up one of my favorite movies as a bad movie to gush about it. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. I
Okay.
let this movie is so bad it's good, but it is bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what's sad is that you got Raul Julia, rest in peace, giving
Mm-hmm.
his final performance, his final at least theatrical performance that I was able to see. I think he actually had one movie that came out after that that was
Mm-hmm.
released. But this guy who is this activist actor, and just insanely awesome performer. He's giving his all in his performance, as M Bison, man. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
he
Yeah.
is hamming up the scenes. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, definitely the best, which he should be. He's Raul Julia, the
Yes.
best person in this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like just the amount of quotes, right? You get out of this, right? The when when Bison showed up to your village, it was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday, right? Stuff like that. It's so good, right? And then
Yes.
he's like talking to DJ.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, DJ, have they sent the funds yet? And then DJ's like, hell no, General, right?
Yes.
It's just, you got Miguel Nunez Jr. I think that's who it was who played
Mm-hmm.
DJ. So many things like that. And then you got Jean Claude Van Damme as French or Belgian Guile, right?
Yes.
The big old U.S. tattoo on his arm, but he's clearly speaking French accent.
Yes.
So
Multicultural. Yes.
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But you got him, and he's like, doing the whole speech. They go on the little speedboats. He's like, we can all go home, but I'm not going home. I'm going to go hop river, and I'm going to kick the son of a bitch Bison's ass so hard that the next Bison one is going to. It's like so good. It's so good, but it's so bad. And the
Oh
movie, I
man.
mean, honestly, it's terrible in that how they brought everybody together. I mean, they brought everybody from like Super Street Fighter at this point, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
just bad. It's
Yes.
like there's no one has a good way of coming in. It's not like the later animated movies or some other things where you see Interpol is more involved. You got Chun-Li, I think she's Interpol, but she's got, Balrog, coming in the boxer dude that's like a cameraman at E Honda and just I'm like,
Yes.
what? Like, no, none of this makes any sense. Ken and Ryu are like,
Yeah.
smugglers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like none of this makes any sense, you
True.
know. So it's really bad. The special effects aren't that great,
Mm-hmm.
I probably say the best thing was Guile doing his flash kick. Right, that's probably
Mm.
the coolest thing.
Yes.
Even the Shoryuken was terrible.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Hadouken was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's not really a great movie. But it is still an awesomely bad movie, right? But it's so bad, but it's so good, right?
Hmm.
And so I wanted to put it on the list because it really is a bad video game movie, right? But
True.
it is endeared by all, right? And
Hmm.
I will continue to think it's a so bad it's a good movie. But if I had to say, is it better than the other movies that I've seen, who are not my next four, I would say no, it's actually a pretty terrible movie. But I mean, I love
I think you got the lists mixed up, man. It sounds like the top
it.
my top five best live action movies, and this is number five. So it seems like your list is very like you know. So okay, I'll go next here, man. For me, my number five, and it's a little bit of a torn thing too.
Hmm.
As a kid in the '90s, for me, my first fighting game was Mortal Kombat, right?
Hmm.
And Mortal Kombat Annihilation came out in 1997, and that movie
Hmm.
was trash. Trash. I don't know if it's on your list
Very.
at any point, but for me, when I watched
I'll
the
try to
first,
figure out how it's number five.
I mean, you when you hear the rest, you will know why, right?
Okay.
So for me, Mortal Kombat is such a larger than life movie, or just a series, right? You have fatalities, babyalities, animalities, friendships, all these different things, and then their moves are just all over the place. Scorpion lets out a spade. Oh, and when I looked at the movies in the 90s, and a lot of the movies that's early on in my list is in the 90s, like you said, CGI was shitty, right? And for me, I was just like, yo, you could just avoided it or something, right? Because when you really look at it, whether it was the first movie where they had Goro as an animatronic puppet looking thing, right? And Johnny Cage punching it in the nuts and all that stuff was kind of cool. But now when we look at the Annihilation movie, okay, I think for me the best part was Jax's arms, right? I was like, okay, cool, yeah, he got the metal arms. But when Liu Kang transformed and did the animality or transformed into a dragon thing, and then the person he was fighting transformed into some type of like four-headed, three-headed thing, I was just like,
You you,
how this movie just went that direction?
you didn't like the kaiju fight at the
Yo, I was just like, Godzilla gonna come from the side. It was wild. Like, and that's why I just like, number five, Splash, right? You know what I mean? And I think it was a good attempt at a very popular series in the 90s, right? A good attempt, but it was terrible. And it was a small bar to clear. Clear the Mortal Kombat 1 bar. Clear that, right? And then there was Street Fighter, like you talked about just now. Just clear these things, but creative freedom. Hmm. So yes,
Mm,
I want to
mm,
forget it. Don't
okay.
expect me to watch it again. So yeah, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. No.
Okay. Okay. I saw it again like maybe two or 3 years ago. I can't remember how, but I did. But
Wow.
I'm really surprised it's number five. I would expect it to be much higher on the list. But I'm very interested to see what numbers 1 through 4 are for you now.
Yes, yes, they'll be good. So, what's your number four?
Number four, I'm gonna go with a certain game from a certain company back in the 80s, maybe 90s a little bit too. You may know them for making a game called Battletoads, but they
Oh,
also made another game called Double Dragon, Trade West. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, the goodness of those games did not make it to the movie
Oh,
like at all.
hmm,
It was pretty terrible. Whether it's you got what's his name, Patrick, what's his name, the T-1000
hmm,
as the bad guy. You got Scott Wolf as Billy, and then you got
hmm,
the amazing Mark Dacascos. That's I hate having to say something bad about this movie because it has Mark Dacascos in it. Mark Dacascos is my dude. Whether it's
hmm,
Drive, whether it was Only the Strong, whether it's being the chairman of Iron Chef, you know,
hmm.
whatever it is, Mark Dacascos is my guy. Or in John Wick, right? Um, but man, this is so bad. It's so bad, especially when Abobo, not adobo, that's the seasoning. Abobo, yeah, Abobo, right? When Abobo shows up, and it's like, who is this? The form dude, and the thing, and none of it. And then it's got this
Hmm.
whole because you know the '90s where like everything's got to have a kid. You got to appeal to the kids. It can't just be
Yes.
Mortal Kombat
Sell
was like the first.
toys. Yep.
Yeah, which not only just sell toys, but you had to appeal to the kid being in the movie. So like
Mhm.
Mortal Kombat was like the first time was like just the video game and just the characters and just the story, right? Whereas um Double Dragon is like, oh, there's like Alyssa Milano like runs this thing with these renegade rebel kids who've been
Mhm.
disowned or orphaned or whatever it is that's going on with them, and like they're like this band, this gang of kids. So they're them versus the evil corporation that's being headed by T-1000 dude, and this and he's trying to get the power of like the medallions for the Double Dragon.
Yep.
It's just oh god, it's just oh
You
it's
would
not
think
good.
these games don't have stories to them, right? And I could get, Mortal Kombat was pretty simple back in the day, and now there's tons of stories. Mortal Kombat 11,
Oh
I'm just like,
yeah,
yo, rip that and put that there. Just do all the cutscenes and just
yep.
don't experiment. But I get
I've
it back.
literally watched the game as a movie. I've literally watched the cutscenes as a movie before.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what it was meant to be, right? And I think when we go back to the 90s and we think about, the original, and I think the original Double Dragon game had some story to it. So it wasn't like as if it was like fight,
Yeah,
fight again,
yeah,
fight
yeah.
more. Like it
Right.
wasn't one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah. Yeah, to your point, you make a good point because the movie did have the backdrop that there was some kind of like
Hmm.
post, I won't say apocalyptic, it's not the right choice word, but it's like a little bit of a dystopian future kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that the Double Dragon games did have that background where it was like more like gangs are kind of running or ruling the city kind of
Hmm.
thing. And that's why the brothers had to go and save, I forgot her name. But yeah, you had to save the girl and had to beat down all these gangs on the way to try to rescue her and also take
Hmm.
down the evil corporation. Then in part two, when you did that, you fought like the ancient evil. You had to fight each other to see who was going to get the girl at the end, which was kind
Hmm.
of weird. Especially you're playing with your best friend. You're like, yeah, we just kicked the bad guy's butt. Yeah. And all of a sudden, now you two must fight for the girls. Like, just saying like the wrong message. Like, you're my boy. Like, okay, I'm just gonna do this spinning tornado kick, and I get hit with a tiger knee thing, and then I get blasted out. but,
Yes.
but yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Double Dragon is my number 4. How about you, sir?
Oh man. So number 4 for me is pretty short. I don't have a lot to say about it because I don't want to say much. Need for Speed. One of the games that I enjoyed as a kid was Need for Speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I liked
Mm-hmm.
fight racing games, Diddy Kong Racing, Need for Speed, XGRA, all these tons of games back in the day. And when I saw the movie, for me, the first thing that came to my mind, 4 words: Fast and the Furious. I was like, man, this movie is fucking like this movie is a money grab, right? Because
Yeah.
pretty much, and I think starring Aaron Paul. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I was just like,
Yeah.
wrong guy. Like you, like you think of a Need for Speed movie, you thinking like who was like amazing and Keanu Reeves or something, right? Like you're like, yeah, not Aaron Paul. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the third guy. But nothing's wrong with him, right? Because I love him in Westworld, right? Great, acts great in that movie. But the story alone wasn't even enjoyable. It was like, oh, I'm avenging my friend's death and I'm driving across the country. What? Like Fast and the Furious, I'll watch that. Fast and the Furious, I'll watch that. But Need for Speed definitely was there for me in terms of just like not great, not enjoyable, pointless.
Hmm. I want to say more about it. I've never seen it.
Hmm.
There are certain movies where it's like if I just know it's already bad, like unless I'm catching it like
Hmm.
on TNT on a Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon or whatever, it's not getting
Oh
viewed by
man,
me. But I've heard bad things. I've heard bad
damn.
things. I wish I could say more, but
Hmm.
I am sorry you had to endure that.
But you never know, right? Because I think the tough thing is that you want to give movies a chance because you
Yeah.
enjoy the franchise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
the nostalgia. But it's always disappointing when you see, okay, these directors, producers, writers who want to really spin the story and like create this mosaic, this
Yeah.
art, and it's like, no, no, like it's okay, don't get crazy, but this is what we get, right? Has there ever
Yeah.
been a Need for Speed after that? No. I mean, granted, it seems like remakes come out every 10 years, so we may get one in 2024, but I'm hoping I don't have to explain to my kid why we can't go watch that movie.
Yeah, just to show them the previous one. There you go. That's gonna be your
Yes,
explanation.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Oh man.
Okay, so we're moving up to number 3. What's number 3 for you?
Top 3. Here we go. All
Yeah.
right. So based on this, the number 1 and number 2 are gonna be real good. So my number 3 is Super Mario Brothers.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah. So Super Mario Brothers still had some charm. It still had, some bit of enjoyment. We got introduced to John Locke was Leguizamo. God dang, why I couldn't get it out. John
Hmm.
Leguizamo, right? We of
Yes.
course Bob Hoskins is great. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That body swapping thing with Denzel Washington, cardiac, whatever. I don't
Hmm.
remember it, but fully the name. But great British actor. Also, rest in peace, man. This is going to be a rip. A rip episode, especially when I get to my number one. It's going to
Oh
be a rip
wow.
episode.
Yes.
Uh, but so we have those two. We've got Dennis Hopper rip as well. Gosh
Hmm.
dang. Okay, let's just keep the train going. But we but we've got all these people in this movie, right?
Hmm.
Arguably, I can't remember if it's the first video game movie or not. I think it is, but I could be wrong about that.
Hmm.
Definitely departed from the source material a lot.
Yes. Hmm.
um, honestly, garbage because the whole dinosaur angle, like the realistic dinosaurs, I think it's probably the Jurassic Park effect or something. I don't know.
Yes.
Like it was like we gotta have it. Yoshi was like a raptor or something, and then you had this whole de-evolution thing, which I don't understand how human beings devolve into dinosaurs or fungi. I don't get it. That's not how de-evolution works. you know.
Yeah.
but it had a lot of charm to it, which is why it's in my number three and not number one, number two. You
Hmm.
can still watch it and see elements of they got the red and blue and the green and blue suits, and I like the fact that they played off John Leguizamo being Luigi being like the younger brother, and then Bob Hoskins being the more sage older Mario, right? So that was kind of a nice play. Again, a little bit of liberty there in terms of the age difference, but it was at
That's a
least interesting.
gigantic leap.
It was. It
But
was
go ahead.
huge. It was a huge. But then like little bob, I did like the bob ons. That was really cool how they worked those in, like the little wind up toys. I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I like also has a cool product placement. The de-evolution gun was a Super Scope 6. Like, that's pretty awesome. Like, I gotta admit,
Yes.
even though so many
Hmm.
things went sideways in this movie, like it was a dystopian future, like Mad Max in some ways, like
Yeah.
when you got outside the city, like
Hmm.
throwing a Super Scope in a movie,
Yeah.
that was pretty awesome.
Toy placement.
But
Toy
yeah,
placement.
yeah, great product placement there. But yes, the movie in general was just not that great. I don't think I need to explain too much as to why the movie was trash,
Hmm.
but at least it had enough charm to be at the bottom of my top three. It is the sad part about this movie is that it was so bad and so poorly received that Nintendo still has not made another another video game movie since, right? Particularly Super Mario, but they keep telling they're going to do it, and then it just hasn't happened. Zelda
And
was supposed to happen and didn't.
I understand Nintendo's hesitation, right? Because I think even on the movies on this list, you'll hear that folks really take some level of liberty to tweak these characters or the story or create a whole new wild ass story.
Yeah,
So here we get Mario,
yeah,
Mario Brothers, right? And that was one of the first live action movies based on, and it just didn't set the tone. Like pipe
yeah.
wrench in the hands, and they have the plunge. Like what? So yeah, I almost say anything else that uh, focus was on the list. So number
They
three for me is Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Right?
what?
Yes, yes. As a kid growing up, one of the games them that I had for the Nintendo GameCube was Prince of Persia, and I loved that game. Reversing time, moving time slowly, great, great, right? And you got to think about it. For me, is like we had in 2010 because that movie came out in 2010. We had Tekken, we had Resident Evil, and then we had Prince of Persia smashed in the middle, and they just did it wrong. My whole thing with that movie was the fact that they hired or they had Jake Gyllenhaal play the main character. Prince of Persia, no, didn't see it there, right? And for me, one of the interesting parts about that whole thing was Jake Gyllenhaal himself said years later, you know, I didn't choose right when I chose to be in that movie. And I mean, some actors do that all the time, right? When like, years later they're like, yeah, no, I'll never do that movie again. But it was so I didn't enjoy it. I didn't it feel like a mashup of Sands of Time, Words Within, Two Thrones, all these stories, and they could have done a series like we see today. But I get probably back then in the early 2000s, it was like, no, we're not doing a 1, 2, and 3. We're gonna do a one, and we're gonna have all of it in, and it just felt like a lot of story and no story at the same time. And for me, it was just like it just left me feeling like open in terms of I didn't get satisfied as a fan of the franchise. And just again another money grab. That's really what I came away with when it came to Prince of Persia, because
Mm.
this CG look, I get it. CGI was rough back in the day, and now it's much better. But yeah, they could. I would be happy for them to reboot or remake a Prince of Persia. Granted, the game isn't as popular anymore, but that's something I would like to see because there's even a Resident Evil reboot coming soon, right? So I'm just like, yo, let's do that. And it was like what 8 Resident Evil movies or something like that. Like, come on now. And they still bad, but hey.
Oh man, I'm trying my best not to go into my honorable mentions. I'm not sure if I should say some things now or later, but let me be clear. I'm not saying Prince of Persia was a great movie. I'm just
Okay.
shocked that it is number 3 when you already mentioned Tekken. So I'm a bit shocked that Prince of Persia's on this list. Well, we do have 2 more slots. You could
Yes.
surprise me, but
Yes.
just saying,
Uh,
it kind of was like, Tekken.
sure. Sure. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your number 2? What's your number 2?
Number 2. Okay, we're getting to it now. Number
Uh-huh.
2 is you can guess. It's either going to be number 1 or number 2, right? It's it's
Mm-hmm.
it's on the list. Mortal Kombat Annihilation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Movie is terrible. It's garbage. I remember seeing this movie with my cousin, and both of us saying this movie is trash. I
Mm-hmm.
remember it was like a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
High school. It was like senior. No, it wasn't senior year. It was junior year of high school. I remember sitting in homeroom in between the transition periods and someone walking through our room to get to another room to their homeroom. And this guy was talking to this girl, and she was like, "So what'd you do this weekend?" He's like, "I went to the movies. We saw Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It was trash." I remember that so distinctly. I don't think I've ever remembered something so distinctly in my life from high school as
Mm-hmm.
someone walking by casually from through the entrance of a door, through another door to another room, talking about that they saw a movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and how much it was garbage, casually to someone else, which is an explanation for just how garbage this movie was. Like
Yeah.
no one our age was like that movie was actually kind of cool. Yeah, just wasn't as good as the first one. No, everyone outright garbage.
Yes.
You mentioned you mentioned Jax with the arms, right? What
Mm-hmm.
got me was how what's his name? Is his name Lynn Red? Is that name Lynn something? I can't remember his name. I think it's Lynn something.
Lynn Red Williams.
There we go. And so how he's like, you know what? I don't need these arms no more. I'm like, whoa, no, that's not the story. That is not the story.
Oh.
These are not cybernetic enhancements that you wear. This is not armor. This is your arm. What? So he took the arms off. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the arms look cool, and Lynn was awesome in the role.
Yes.
He looked cool at least, in the role.
Yeah.
Um, but like to what you mentioned earlier, the kaiju fight at the end, right? with with Shao Kahn and Liu Kang going at it,
Yes.
how they pretty much took Katana out of the movie, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about how bad the movie is by virtue of how it started. The
Yes.
movie started right where the first movie ended, and what did they do at the start? What did
Mm-hmm.
they do?
Mm-hmm.
They killed Johnny Cage right at
Yeah.
the start. The best character in the first movie,
Yeah.
at least the most likable one, the
Yes.
one who had the most character development and growth.
Mm-hmm.
With Lyndon Ashby doing his whole, those are $500 sunglasses, asshole.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff he was doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They killed this dude,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, Well, first it wasn't Lyndon Ashby, so that was part of the problem, right? It was someone, it was just
Yes.
some extra, so that was part of the
Yeah.
problem. That was the first thing. Everybody's like, "Who the heck is that? That's not Johnny Cage, right?" You know.
Yep.
But then it's like he jumped up and then did the Johnny Cage kick like in midair, the little shadow kick thing. It looked
Yes.
really weird. Shao Kahn was like, "Nah, son, get out of here." Threw it to the side,
Yes.
and he was sitting there on the hand or whatever, sitting there, snap neck and everything. Like the whole movie just started off bad, and then you had the little cycle ball things that they were using to travel through Outworld or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
and then James Remar got cast in place of my man,
Raiden. Yeah.
well Raiden, but why can't I
Mm-hmm.
remember his name because it's actually French. It's so we always mispronounce it, but it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Lambert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's like so you didn't have the you know, I don't think so. You don't have that no more because you got James
Yeah.
Remar now.
Yes.
So it's like, nothing. Nobody came back for the movie, right? And
Yep.
then, like I said, Katana pretty much got written out. So it's like she wasn't there anymore. And then you had Liu Kang doing his thing, and then and they just try to shove all the other characters in there. Just I don't know how much more I gotta say about how bad this movie is.
It felt like a parody, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's what some of the movies in the 90s felt like. It was like, wow, this is just a bad parody, like a scary movie parody before all those things. But yeah, bro, I'm surprised it's high on your list, but it was a bad movie. It was definitely a bad movie. So for me, number 2 is Monster Hunter, right? And Monster Hunter came out last year, and that's tough, right? Because I love, what is her name? Mila Jovovich, right? I love her in what was it? The Resident Evil movies and stuff like that.
Pass. Oh.
Yeah.
Fifth Element. I thought you were going to name like the actual good movie, not the Resident Evils.
Resident Evil ain't bad, but
Oh, man.
I mean, perspective. But Monster Hunter was tough for me because I grew up playing Monster Hunters on my Wii U, just and for me the story is there, right? You're trying to hunt down these animals, craft, and just build on your character. And it was so weird, right? It was like these security forces team, and we live in this world with these large animals, and then where we're stranded and we're searching, and then we have these tanks and these. I was like, what? Like it's one of those things where it suffers from trying to ground something, and you don't have to ground it. You don't have to ground it. I get that Monster Hunter doesn't have like a tremendous there's so many different games now, but doesn't have like a tremendous like story. I mean, the new one that just came out, Monster Hunter Rise, does have one, but of course, last year was when the movie came out. But it's so hard when you try to ground a movie and then you just say, forget all that. Today's world, giant monsters next door, the Godzilla effect, right? And it's just like, damn. You didn't have I think my frustration is always I look to the source material as inspiration and to not loosely base something on. And when I see a loosely based adapting, oh, giant monster, give me my machine gun or whatever, like, or give me a piece from a tank and I'll cut it. It's like, no, hurts. It hurts. And again, I go back to money grab, money splash grab, and the forehead of all these animals that, I mean, the CGI stuff looked good, but yeah, fail.
I forgot to even watch the movie. It was that much like when I saw the trailers and I was like, oh, so this is about to be an isekai. These going to go to another world. I was like, I'm good. Like, I totally forgot it even came out to go watch it so I could at least laugh at how bad it was. Yeah. But here's the thing. I see it as more just as much as I don't see it as a money grab as much as I just see it just constant bastardization because like Monster Hunter isn't exactly like the biggest money grab, super popular thing, sure, that people are thinking about in North American audiences. They're thinking about movies to go make a games to go make a movie on, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like this is kind of a Mila Jovovich thing. Jovovich thing. It's like Resident Evil. So just jump into my honorable mention thing real quick. Resident Evil movies are terrible. They are horrible. drives me nuts every time we make a new one and we're like up to 8. And everybody's like, you see a new Resident Evil? And like you got the casual people who are like, oh man, I love Resident Evil movies. Have you ever played a Resident Evil game? No. That explains why you like these movies, right? It's like, oh, it drives me nuts every time. It's like they keep making them, and people keep seeing these movies. They keep making money, and I'm just like, stop it.
I mean, they keep making games, so there's something there. I mean, was it the new game that just come out is Resident Evil Village online, right? You playing online, so there's an audience for it. But
no, the game is fine. We're talking about the sheer bastardization of the game in the movies.
Sure. To me, I don't know how I have a soft place in my heart for Resident Evil, and I'm okay with the tweaks that they make to the movies because they don't seem far off in my mind. But I hear you, and this is why you have your list and I have my list. And the honorable mention, that makes sense.
The Resident Evils do something very well that a lot of other video game movies, well, at least before recently, they're doing better, obviously, with this stuff. But they do a good job of making references. Since was the early 2000s or was it the late 90s when the first movie came out? They make references to the game. Things you see in the game do seem to happen in the movie, or at least are referenced in the movie. It's just always centered around Alice, because you know, why not put your wife/girlfriend as the center of everything in the movie? The director, Paul W.S. I think which one I'm talking about, because it's Paul T, right, and it's Paul W.S, right? I think it's Paul W.S. But yeah, it's all right.
You're not wrong, man. So what's number one on your list? Because you have said Mario Brothers. So what's number one?
Gotta get this stretch here. All right, number one. Okay, let me just say, I'm not going to talk about the whole movie. I'm going to talk about one scene in the movie.
Yes.
One scene. And we're going to talk about how bad this movie is with one scene.
Okay.
And somehow, magically or coincidentally, this game has actually got a remake announced this past week. But this movie is horrible. And it continues the trend of somehow having big stars in all these movies, right? Whether it's Ben Kingsley in both Prince of Persia and in was it Dungeon Siege? I think he's in. I haven't seen Dungeon Siege, so it's not number one because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But House of the Dead.
Wow.
Absolutely garbage. It's so bad. Most of you already probably know the scene I'm gonna be mentioning because it was in the trailer. It's so bad. We're talking about the part when they finally decide to take the fight to the zombies or the zombie monsters or wherever they are. I don't know. Like, I'm up here spitting because it's so bad. Yeah. And so basically they all get some guns and they're like, getting ready to go take care of the zombies. Zombies will bust out of the building, rah, doing their thing that they do in House of the Dead, right? And so at that point, they're like, let's go. And then what do you think comes on? DMX. Rest in peace. DMX, party up, right? Comes on. Well, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Then everybody just, and then of course it was like the early 2000s. So you know what else was popular at the time? Bullet time, or poor man's bullet time, which is just freezing the camera and spinning around people. This shit. And so, because they had to do it for like every character that was sitting there. It was so annoying. Then you had I think it was a black one. The black lady was like, I have a shotgun. It's at the hip. You know what I'm going to do? Because you know what you do with shotguns, right? You jump up in the air and you shoot shotguns, don't you? That's what you do. That's how it works. No. So she jumps up in the air, shoots a shotgun. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind. I mean, while the camera's spinning, it just drives me nuts every time. And so they're blasting zombies. This already sounds pretty terrible, right? This already sounds like a really horrible movie. But guess what? They said no. They said no, Corey. We know you're going to talk about this in the year 2021. We've got an idea to make this even worse. Guess what they did? And this is, to me, as far as I can tell, is the only video game movie that has done this, or at least has done this that I've seen or I've heard of. Guess what else they do? Guess what else they do during this scene? This one
Mhm.
scene, Elroy, to make it more special. Guess what else they could do to make this
Mhm.
even more just crappy?
What
Guess
did
what
they
they
do?
do? They decide, you know, what'd be really good. We should splice in video game footage while they're doing this. I don't get it.
Oh,
So,
God.
so yes, you're
Uh-huh.
seeing the actors, boom, 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 camera spinning, doing their thing, jumping up in the air, camera spinning, doing their thing. And then out of nowhere, it's the rawr, oh, you're shooting it with the light gun at the arcade cabinet. Like it's no, I'm serious. It literally is
Oh
splicing
boy.
in the footage of the game, like just
Mhm.
showing the damage that they're inflicting and stuff. And I'm just like, did they just run out of budget so they can't show zombies being shot?
Oh
It's
man.
so bad. It is so bad. It is so. It's just one scene. That's
Mhm.
not even the rest of the movie. Like the rest of the
Yeah.
movie's bad too. The rest of the movie's just terrible. But
Yeah.
that one scene is just so bad. It is so bad that it typifies
Mhm.
the whole movie. Like I don't have to explain the rest of the movie. That scene is absolutely terrible, and it just shows that the 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 attempted cash grab that people were doing
Yeah.
because it's just oh. And I can't remember if that one was a Juve Ball or not movie. I have to look
Mhm.
that up. Actually, let's take a look. I think I actually have the website up here, so
Mhm.
it should be able to tell me. And is that a Juve Ball? No, it's not. It's not. I don't think it is. Wait, is it? I don't know. Oh, by the big actor was Jurgen whatever. Oh no, it is. It is directed by Juve Ball. See,
Mhm.
Bowl. Sorry, Juve Bowl. See, there we go.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with the with Juve Bowl. You know, I don't know how he kept getting these movies funded in the early 2000s, but man, that guy.
I mean, because people think that it would translate, right? I think at that time we had all these different scary movies and House of what is it, Silent Hill, House of all the stuff just felt like people want that. But yeah, definitely, I need to go check that movie out because I need a good laugh, and it sounds like it's full of it. It's full of it. So my number one, Corey, was I think your number three, Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, and it was tough for me because as one of the first live action movies based on a video game that I saw, expectations was high, right? Because I think
Mm.
before then was Super Mario Brothers on the Super NES, and you see that and you play that, and then you watch the movie and it's so different. You're like, oh, they're in a city and they're actual plumbers, and I mean, like they know because it's not me Mario. Right? It's not the me Mario. Like that's not the Mario that we would expect. And even when they had Bowser or someone who was identified as like, it's like no, like why do this? And it was tough, man. Like I think back at that and I get emotional. I get emotional. And you should get emotional about movies, but I think you've spoken at length about it, and I hope if they do a Mario movie again, they go animated route, please, and not live action. I think that's one of those things you don't do live action. Sonic was one of the funny movies that came out last year, and I didn't think they would do a live action thing, but it did, and it was okay. But just do animated, Wreck-It Ralph style that shit. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Mhm.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't see how live action Mario could have really worked.
Yep.
So I'm surprised. I know there's a lot of emotion tied to it, but I'm surprised that it's worse than MK Annihilation, given you were saying that MK Annihilation had such an easy bar to just step over. And Mario is like the first.
There's no grace. No, I know. The game. Look, you're basing it on a franchise or a video game property that's very simple, right? They could have just had two guys, Wizard of Wonder, Wizard of Oz types thing, like keep that shit simple. Like, man, when you try to like ground something, and you just lose the whole. Like, if someone was like, "Yo, you want to see a Mario movie? Yeah, you want to play the game?" Nah, bro, I don't know what that game
Yeah,
might be, but I ain't even gonna give it. And then you just get closed off from something that could be so great. That's my thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
if a movie can't, and I get it, movies aren't meant to introduce them to the original source material. But damn, I watch Game of Thrones and I'm like, I want to read the books, even though they're like a million pages or whatever. But like, come on, hard, bro, hard. But yeah, Super Mario #1 on the list forever. Ain't nobody could do that worse.
I don't know, man. I don't know. House of Dead's pretty terrible.
I'm definitely gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna have to
Especially
revise
with the
it.
spliced in video game footage. Like you're
Yes.
sitting there watching people get blasted. Next thing you know, you're like, wait a second, those are polygons. Right?
Oh man.
Oh man, it's
Mhm.
it's so terrible. That's a reticle. Why am
Mhm.
I seeing this on the screen? Okay, but anyway,
Mhm.
yeah, man. Honorable mentions. I already mentioned the Resident Evil franchise in its
Yes.
entirety. Like seriously, that entire thing is just. How do y'all keep letting these? They can't keep getting away with it.
Yeah.
Although I do appreciate they started introducing more characters, but it
Mhm.
still is like severe bastardization. Because everything has to be Alice-centric. Tekken is on the list as an honorable mention, and so is Dead or Alive. But Dead or Alive was
Mm.
kind of fun because it had a bunch of actors in there who were
Yeah.
like just doing their thing. So a bunch of fairly known. I mean, they're not like A list or anything, but
Mhm.
it's like you could point at like, oh yeah, that's that person, that's that person, that's that person,
Yes.
right? Kind of thing. So Dead or Alive, Tekken, they're on the list
Mhm.
as honorable mentions, but not as bad. And like I said, honestly, Street Fighter was just there just because it was just a reason for me to gush about how great, awesomely bad the movie is. Actually,
I hear that. And for me, I think fondly about it. I mean, it's not on my top 10 list, right? But it's not on the top 5 worst. But yeah, Street Fighter definitely was not well done.
all right, man. You got anything else?
No, man, no. I'm excited
Okay.
just to really have this conversation and really just kind of live in the times of watching these movies and experiencing them, right? Even it's funny when I brought in Monster Hunter, which was last year, so it wasn't necessarily a super old movie, suffered from bad CGI, but it's bad story, bad like that's next that one we can
Yeah.
forget it, and it's one of those things where you're like, oh, that movie happened, no, that didn't happen. Like this is a different one, and we see it all the time with movies today. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely bad.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Mhm.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us on the Super Rock Boy top 5 worst live action video game movies of all time list. Uh,
Mhm.
both the Elroy and the Corey version. And
Yes.
hopefully we were controversial enough. Hopefully you are already grabbing your spears to throw my way over Street Fighter. That was my intention.
Mhm.
But definitely let us know in the comments, man. What were your top 5? What was some of the worst live action video game
Mhm.
adaptation experiences that you ever experienced, that you wish you
Mhm.
could not remember, and
Mhm.
maybe what would you alter by our list, or what
Yeah.
would you change? Don't forget to don't forget to comment, subscribe, and share, especially our controversial opinions. Please share that with your friends so they could be like, what the heck these two whatever's talking about. Like,
Mhm.
man, y'all are wrong. And just be on the internet saying y'all are wrong. Yeah. We appreciate that.
Mhm.
Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next video.
Awesome. Take care.